forgot what the title is. Hello, we are live. I was just saying, I forgot what the title of today's episode is. Welcome to Shooting the Shit. It is Monday. This is the second of our Valentine's Day special. So the eagle-eyed amongst you might notice that today is not Valentine's Day, but last Monday was. So we've bookended Valentine's Day, the Monday before and the Monday after, with 2 episodes about romance. So last time, Hannah and Rish did us proud with an episode on feminism and office romances and things.
Can I just say, I think it was the worst shooting the shit that's ever been done. And we came off and I was cringing so hard, I could have peeled my own skin off my face. I don't know I don't know if, have you listened to it, Jo?
No. I listened to it. I thought it was great. I laughed along. I thought it was brilliant.
Well, it's worth listening to just for a car crash, but Jo, I'd rather you didn't listen to it.
Yeah. This is how well you know whether something's classy or not. Rachel liked it, Jo didn't. Not classy. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we are here to talk about Valentine's Day and romance and feminism, and where do all of these things fit in together? So, you know, Valentine's Day, we trot out all of the old romance tropes. You've got to give your girlfriend 12 red roses, and you've got to buy her chocolates, and you've got to take her on a romantic meal and all the rest of it. And really, part of me feels like we've got to be past that. I know there's a little bit of equality coming now, isn't there? Isn't Valentine's Day? Oh no, it's a leap year, isn't it? Where the woman's allowed to ask the man to marry them. That's
allowed.
Yeah, there's only one day in the year where the woman is allowed.
One day in 4 years.
1 day in 4 years, of course, yes, because it's a leap year. Yeah, but you know, romance these days, there should be more equality to it. And why do we still fall for all of those old romantic tropes? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing I would like to know, Hannah, what's your name and where'd you come from?
I'm Hannah. And I don't do Valentine's Day, and I didn't get my other half anything, and I didn't receive anything, and I was okay with that.
What is the most romantic thing that you've ever done?
That I've ever done?
Yeah, or that's ever been done to you.
We needed some pre-thinking if you were going to ask us this.
I don't think I've ever done anything romantic. I'm not a romantic person.
Yeah. No, do you know what? I did do some pre-thinking about this because I knew I was going to ask it you. And I can't think of a single romantic thing that I've ever done either. So, Jo, yeah, go on. You are going to redeem us here. Redeem us. Okay. Melt our cold ice hearts.
Yeah, so I think this is pretty romantic. One year, not so long ago, had a particularly difficult year and thought we needed just, you know, some special love. So it wasn't Valentine's Day, it was for Christmas, I made an advent calendar, and it was one of those you could buy and you can fill in the things yourself. So there was obviously chocolate in each, but I had written a happy memory from that year that we both shared in every single window.
Oh, that is lovely.
And I love the idea as well of special love. Like I always say to Dave, like we don't need to do Valentine's Day because we love each other and we show each other that we love each other. But you know, you kind of don't, do you, really, after like 15 years together, 10 years of marriage. But like special love, like renewed love and kind of extra love. I love the idea of that. I love the love.
I love the love. I think
it's quite nice to sit and think and reflect. Yeah. And I think for 24 nice things that have happened this year we've shared, it's a nice thing to do. It's like practicing gratitude.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what as well? I bet all of those things weren't massively big gestures either. I bet some of them were just really nice, sort of everyday things, but it's nice to point them out and pull them out and remember them, isn't it?
It was like, remember that time we had that amazing cream tea in the middle of winter on a crappy day, and it cheered us up, and it was just like brilliant, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you know what? I do think, you know, there is a place, and obviously this is one of the things we're going to come on to talk about, but I think there is a place for keeping that sort of romance alive. Because you're right. I mean, Dali and I don't even know how long we've been married, 13, 14, 15 years, around that figure. And I don't have a romantic bone in my body. And when we were first married, like at Christmas, for example, we didn't do proper presents, but we'd see who could buy the most gifts for a tenner or something. And you know, just fun things that we had to think about stuff. And nowadays, you just get so swept up in everyday life that a year's gone, another year's gone, another year's gone, and you don't make that time. And I do think there's an element that's important, isn't there?
And yeah, we do, and we always go away and celebrate our wedding anniversary. That's like non-negotiable.
That's lovely.
Oh, you see, I only remember that it's our wedding anniversary when a card comes from my best friend and a card comes from my mother-in-law, and that's how I remember it.
Same. My mother-in-law gives us a card. We're not even sure. Like, we always joke of like that we're not quite sure of the date, but we do remember when we met. I need more romance in my life. I need to bring. I think like one of the things is it's always the man that's expected to romance the woman. And
well, yeah,
I'm jumping ahead. Well, I bought David the other day. So
did you buy them for Dave, or did you buy them for you so that they would make the room look prettier?
I bought them for Dave, and that's exactly what he said. He said, we've bought them for you and just like because you like them. I was like, yeah, but you like them as well. Like, you like daffodils. And I saw them and I thought, oh, Dave likes daffodils, and bought him 2 bunches of daffodils and gave them to him. And he was like, oh, you're just saying that's for me now because you wanted them for yourself. But if he bought me flowers, I wouldn't say, oh, you're just saying that now because you wanted them. So it fell on deaf ears.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay, right. Well, let's come on then. So, I mean, there's a few, when we talk about romance here, obviously, one of the things is how do we display romance in our everyday lives? And I know that the three of us are feminists, so I would imagine our romance is fairly equal and fairly feminist. But when we think about sort of the romance that surrounds Valentine's Day, so there's all of that, sexism about the man is supposed to buy the gifts for the woman, but then also, all of the old rom-coms come out, and the more romance books are out, and there are romance stories in the magazines and romance on the television, and all of that feels a little bit anti-feminist, doesn't it? I mean, we've talked about books before, so we will touch on books today, but I am talking as well about film and television. I've got some examples for you, but I don't know, what do you do you two like rom-coms? Do you watch any?
I do quite like a rom-com.
Do you? So what do you think are the top 3 anti-feminist rom-coms?
I don't know that they're anti-feminist. I'd say that they're more heteronormative and kind of don't allow for other types of relationship, that it's always got to be the man pursuing the woman, and somebody has to make a change in order to be accepted. Like, I don't know that I'd say that they are particularly anti-feminist. They just only look at one type of relationship, totally excluding even things where the power dynamic is not a traditional power dynamic, not even just kind of gender.
Yeah. Joe, do you like a rom-com?
I do. I tend to rewatch old ones. Like, do you know what I mean? When I try and think, if you were to get me to name a recent rom-com, I mean, there's a couple I watched Christmassy sort of rom-coms that were maybe new, which actually did really turn some of those things purposely on their head.
Mm-hmm. Which ones? Can you remember the names?
What was it called? It was a really fun. It was a really fun Netflix. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The old ones is like Bridget Jones, Pretty Woman, Dirty Dancing,
Sleepless in Seattle. I love that one.
Yeah, You've Got Mail. All those.
But Pretty Woman is one of the apparently rated one of the top anti-feminist ones, because it's that whole thing of Julia Roberts needed rescuing by a rich man. Yes, all right, she was working as a prostitute, but she wasn't sex worker. But she wasn't downtrodden, was she? And this whole trope of she needed a rich man to come and pull her out of that situation, that she couldn't have risen out of it herself when she was clearly a really intelligent, headstrong woman. Another one of the ones, obviously, Grease. Sandy's got to change every single thing about herself in order to be accepted by the man that she loves.
Danny just has to wear a cardigan.
Yes. And there's another one. It's The Notebook. I must admit, I haven't seen The Notebook, but apparently the man, the leading man in The Notebook, gets the woman to go out with him by threatening to jump off a Ferris wheel. So that whole relationship is based on the fact that, essentially it's that whole thing of, if you don't love me, I will kill myself. Okay, fine.
So I can't comment on The Notebook because I too have not seen it. And obviously there are problematic things about Pretty Woman and Grease. However, I would argue that they're not as black and white as you describe, because in the Julia Roberts character, yes, she's in a situation where she doesn't have money, but she is shown to be intelligent, that you can walk away from his money and make her own way. I think actually you believe that, and that she can stand up for herself. She goes on a journey, and that's what you need in all character-driven fiction, to show that the characters are adapting and learning. And I would say that Pretty Woman shows that they both do. They're not the same people they are at the beginning, and they have changed and evolved for the better through knowing each other. And I'd argue by the end, he needs her more than she needs him. So I think to say it's more like he saves her, I don't actually agree.
That's a very good point, actually, Jo, because that whole dramatic narrative, you know, the tension is by the fact that she could walk away, isn't it? And that's why we're in this will she, won't she situation.
It's the emotional conflict.
Yeah.
Also,
So no, I take your point there. You're right.
He discriminates against her because she's a sex worker, but the whole kind of thrust of the film is that actually she's just as good as them, even though she's a sex worker. And at the end, he accepts that, and his attitudes have changed, and she fights this discrimination around sex work and kind of like earns the respect of Richard Gere. And
for a film of its time, it makes a point of at the end of what happens at the ending. She's like, she saves him right back. So, you know, because he's scared of heights and all that. And it's a nod to, you know what? He's not, you know, he needs her. So you can look at it really simplistically, but I would argue there's a lot in that film that is quite feminist and puts Julia Roberts in a position of bigger power than him.
I agree. I do think you're absolutely right. I mean, when we look at sort of the genre, the rom-com throughout, you know, time, the 80s, I think the 90s and the noughties were particularly low points. I think the 80s were reasonably good, and I do think I agree with you, Jo. In recent years, I've watched quite a few, not necessarily rom-coms, but series that have either played with that trope and turned it on its head, or have got strong female leads. I mean, I was thinking to myself the other day, actually, I was watching Netflix, the number of shows now that have strong women in them, would never have seen this in, you know, even 10 years ago, would you?
No,
exactly. But I do think though that the noughties, like you say, was a bit of a low point in kind of romantic comedy. There was a lot, and teen movies, there was a lot about the girls having to change quite a lot about themselves, you know, even if it's something as disgusting as like glasses or short hair or
brown hair. That was the worst one.
She's all that.
Change absolutely everything about yourself. Don't be intelligent, don't be this, don't be that, you know, and then you'll be all right. I think that there's a lot of that kind of makeover sort of genre of movies, which was,
I mean, the makeover trope is a massive, like, popular trope, and that, you know, because there is something satisfying. And I'm going to go back to that. No one, you know, can watch that moment in Pretty Woman when she goes back into the shop all dressed up, and, you know, it's like, big mistake. You didn't wait on me because I looked like a slut and you thought I was good for nothing. No one can say that makeover is not so satisfying to watch. And it's because, you know, you believe the Julia Roberts, she's a good person, whatever she's wearing. She's beautiful, whatever she's wearing. It's not about that. And that's why the makeover, when done well, is so satisfying, along with the moment when he comes down to meet her in the bar and doesn't recognize her from behind. Like, those moments, whatever you think about it, like whether you think they're shallow, is still like really satisfying. But she didn't have to change her intelligence to embrace her.
She didn't, but then, as we say, you know, we go back to, there are an awful lot of films that are, you know, as you say, the makeover trope is one of the biggest ones. So I was looking up some of the other sort of most popular tropes in rom-coms, and one of them is the secret billionaire. So that kind of comes into Pretty Woman as well, doesn't it? There's the enemies to lovers which I think that's a particularly problematic one, isn't it? That's always the one where the woman doesn't like him, but he's going to win around anyway, and he's going to win around by pursuing her.
Yeah.
And that comes up time and time again. In fact, I sent a link, didn't I, to the group about it's called Stalker is Love or something, and it's on a website. I'll put the link in the chat. But that points out quite a lot of examples in films of this, men just not taking no for an answer. Another one is the forbidden love, and then forbidden love one, which actually I don't think there's not a sort of anti-feminist thing to that really. I suppose that depends on the story. And then another one is the second chance, which again can be a really problematic one, isn't it? Because it depends what they've done. But again, we've had examples of male characters that have really fucked up, slept with other people, told lies about somebody, gaslit. But they didn't mean it. Give them another chance. And quite a lot of these tropes can just be really problematic. I don't know. Right?
Yeah, it's all in the execution, though, right? That's the point.
Context, yeah.
Because the reason why those tropes are popular, there's something in the core that works, and it's because there is emotional conflict of reasons why the couple can't be together, and they've got to overcome it. So enemies to lovers, they don't need enemies. Sounds like horrible, but it just could be like it's Romeo and Juliet. You're from different families. The families are enemies, so you just believe that you're enemies because you're rival gangs or whatever, and then you become lovers. Second chance can be like just glorious of that kind of second time around relationships. We both screwed up and we can both see where we made mistakes and now we're together. So there's all the positive. There can be the positives. It's just how it can, like anything in any relationships, it can be executed in a way that's unequal and unpleasant.
And I think the problem is that because we've had this sort of backlash after the ladette, we had the ladette culture and girl power and stuff in the 90s. The naughties was a particular backlash against that third wave feminism. We've just had so many years, haven't we, of those tropes being used in a really damaging way. But actually, they don't have to be. And this is the crux of it, isn't it? When we say actually, is romance anti-feminist, it all depends on the context and it depends how it's done. Joe, I want to come on to because you and Rebecca were having a conversation in the Facebook group before we came on about how feminist romance fiction is. And I know this is one of your passions, isn't it? Because of your background. But I mean, you were saying essentially, all of those tropes are in romance fiction, but they're written by women and they're putting women at the heart of it, and it's all about the context. So tell me why does romance fiction do that particularly well? Take these tropes and do them in a feminist way, do you think?
Well, it's because it does put women at the center of their romantic and sexual fantasies. They are by women, for women on the whole. And who is anyone else to police what our fantasies may be? And that is incredibly empowering. And, romantic fiction, because of those, primarily women writing it, has also been empowering because it's allowed women to make a living and actually change their lives through writing these books and getting them published and selling, millions of copies. So to me, obviously, there's going to be books that people read and go, that's not for me, and I see it as really problematic. But, for someone else, they're like, well, I know it's fantasy, so I'm okay with it. Who are we to judge other people's fantasies? If we were to sit around, have a few cocktails together, and I was to go, you know what my fantasy is, and I describe something, you weren't going to go, Joe, you're just ruined by the patriarchy. You'd go, you know what, that's your business, right? Wouldn't you?
Yeah, we're not here to kink shame.
Yeah, don't kink shame, but you put it in a romance novel and suddenly, you're perpetuating, the patriarchy because you want a man to dominate you or you want a man to buy you stuff. It's like, so what? It's just a fantasy. It's just fiction.
Do you think that a big part of the go on, Hannah.
I do think, though, that the problem with romance novels isn't the romance novels. It's the derision that they face like within kind of literature and
so that was going to be my question. There we
go.
go.
You know, like people don't sit there and say, "Oh, action novels, they're such trash." Like, look at Jack Reacher, like by the Lee Child books. Never read one, but so I'm just going to slug it off like with no. No, but they sell gazillions and gazillions of copies, and every book is a hit, and everybody loves it. But no one looks at it and kind of derides it for being trash or, beach material. But when a woman reads a romance novel or watches rom-coms, it's, oh, she's empty-headed, or, her head's up in the clouds, or men don't read romance novels, but women read action novels. And, you wouldn't find typically speaking, you won't find a man sitting reading a romance novel or watching a rom-com just, on their own, but you would find a woman doing the same. And I think it's the attitude towards it that's the sexism rather than the actual content itself.
And this is what comes around Valentine's Day as well, isn't it? That derision. It's that whole thing of, oh, it's Valentine's Day. I'm going to have to take her to the cinema. And as a special treat, I'm going to sit through a rom-com just for her. And it is. I was listening to somebody on, I think, Broadcasting House on Radio 4 a few weeks ago, a woman in publishing. And she was talking about it. She was like, so many readers are women, so many writers are women. And yet you look at the bestseller lists and it is dominated by men. And it's all these action type books, and yet both women and men are reading action books. I'm sure somebody's just said that, but on the comment, but those romance novels are absolutely derided. And do you think that something like 50 Shades of Grey, I think we've had this conversation before, haven't we? But 50 Shades of Grey, it was an awful book in literature terms, but it was so successful and so many people read it, and it became such a cultural, I don't know, what's the word? It was like popular, phenomenon. Wasn't it, to deride it? Yeah, it was a phenomenon, but it was popular to take the piss out of it and to laugh at people that read stuff like that. And I wonder if that had a massive impact on romance fiction as a whole. Did you see that, Jo? Did you see that in publishing?
Well, it got, I was working at Mills and Boon back then, and, it was just like, hi, we've got plenty, this isn't new stuff. It's just made it massively into the mainstream. We were like, anything that brings attention to women owning their sexuality. In fact, I went on the Alan Titchmarsh show and said just that. Anything that's about, women's pleasure. That's why people think, oh, tee, let's giggle about it. And I think it's Rebecca who's, said, romance novels where women get orgasms galore and happily ever afters are somehow seen as being problematic.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be. And so it was a cultural phenomenon. And but romance, I think, if you're not in the romance world, and I mean as in the romantic fiction world, and it's not your thing, you won't know. But it's $1 billion industry. It's massive. And it never really massively goes out of fashion. What you see in the bookstores, a carefully curated list, dependent on marketing spends and all that type of thing. And it's a different kind of publishing as well. You have event books in regular publishing, and there's going to be the key title of the year. Meanwhile, a publisher like Mills and Boon is doing 60 new titles every month. So of course they're not going to be on the bestseller month because there's thousands of them. It doesn't mean that it's a different type of book. I'm starting to waffle now. I get very
No, I get it. You're right. Hannah,
can I ask Jo, do you know of any male romance writers, or did you work with them at Mills and Boon?
Yeah, so there really wasn't many, and for good reason, really. I think it takes, because it is a fictionalized version of a romantic encounter mainly aimed at women, and it wasn't either an interest of many male writers to write that, nor when they did was it always the best, shall we say, in terms of...
Yeah, there's always that. I don't know if you ever Google male descriptions, of men writing women's bodies.
Especially the sexy bits. Yeah.
I do want us just to come on to Kim Ye before we finish. I don't know if either of you have been keeping up with this. So obviously Kim Kardashian and Kanye West were married, 4 kids. They're in the middle of a divorce. The divorce was set off at the end of last year. And Kanye has been on social media waging a war against his wife. And this has been all of the stuff that was coming out was very much about, oh, poor Kanye. He was saying that she wouldn't let him see his kids. He was saying that she wasn't inviting him to the kids' birthday parties. He was having a go that there was a new man in her life and that he's looking after his kids. And just this whole kind of stream of stuff that was coming out that started to create a lot of memes that were quite anti-Kim. And she, to be fair to her, has been fairly silent on this issue. But essentially, just in recent days, I've been reading quite a lot of articles that have been turning this around and saying, actually, this is this really common trope that we get. And it comes up again in fiction, in rom-coms and all the rest of it, that the woman wants to be pursued. She might be saying stop it, but really she wants to bring her family back together. And really, he's love bombing her. He's doing all sorts of stuff as well as, the abuse. But he's writing songs to her and he's publishing poems to her and he's putting it on his Instagram and all the rest of it. And really everybody's just rooting for them to get back together and win around. And the reality is he is harassing her and she has said publicly, like, he's making a very difficult situation 10 times more difficult. But because we're all seeing it through this lens of romance and, oh, the man must woo the woman and, second time chance and all the rest of it, it's skewing how we see it. And so do you think that is the danger of some of these romantic tropes, that they bleed through into real life, into how we see these situations play out?
Well, it's interesting. I think the way you've described it's really interesting because, and I think, and this is a separate thing, but it depends on what kind of information is being fed through to you through social media, because what you just described to me is different to what I've seen via social media. I've purposely, I've not been near it, but I've just seen the can please everyone stop getting on board with this. He's mentally unwell and it's not entertainment. So I wasn't aware of whether it was harassment or love bombing. The version that I've seen online is stop it, he's mentally ill, leave me alone. So I've not seen the version that apparently it's romantic and people want to get him together, because my feeds aren't showing me that. So you've just described a completely different...
That's interesting as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I was why would you talk about romance tropes? Kanye is unwell.
Yeah. I don't think that kind of romance tropes will bleed over into real life. I think about Friends, okay? So, there was the big romance story, Ross and Rachel. Rachel got this dream job. Ross was turning up to her work with picnics and, candles and stuff. And she was like... Yeah. And she was trying to solve a massive crisis at work. She was really under the cosh. And Ross was like, oh, but I've brought you this romantic picnic and aren't I wonderful? And the feeling when I was watching that when I was a kid was, God, Rachel's so unreasonable. He just wants to spend the anniversary with her. And, there's really blame on both sides here. And watching it as an adult, it's obviously Ross is a little shit and they shouldn't even be on television.
Led her to a fucking job.
My perception, and I don't think we're that different in age, was how unreasonable is he being? How annoying. So we've got to remember that how things are perceived and how we take things and whether we get on board with the trope or not, we're all informed by our own personal experiences and, our own core values. So that's why when we blanket say, oh, that is sexist or it's anti-feminist, it's well, that's your take on it because of your upbringing, your belief systems, all of that. I saw it as entertainment. And I too would have chucked him out because here's Rachel doing her own thing. You are being an absolute, you're not being romantic. You're being a dick and you're being possessive. That's how I watched it. First time round and second time round.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? No, I didn't get. I was like, I'm 36, so I was, quite young when I was watching that, and impressionable. And I watch it now with my daughter who's 9, so I was perhaps a similar sort of age. And I'm looking at her going, "This is not okay." You do realise that, and I think,
Do you actively point that out to her? Do you say that when you're watching it?
Yeah. This is
so
why
it's a learning point.
Well, it's why she won't watch TV with me now, because I just like you
big feminist fun sponge.
I know, right? But do you think it bleeds over into real life? You know, like we look at the kind of the movies and the books, and you either think, oh, I'd like that, you know, that, and that's fun, and in some ways it can kind of empower you to find your own romance or whatever. But also it can kind of, I suppose, condition boys and girls into believing this is how a boy and a girl behaves, and this is what relationships look like, and this is what's normal, or this is what's acceptable, which is why I think it's so problematic that rom-coms, and I'm talking particularly about movies because I haven't really read that many romance books, but they are so heteronormative, and I think that's why that's problematic, and it does kind of reinforce gender and often racial stereotypes and kind of sexual orientation stereotypes. Like I watched a rom-com at Christmas because Chloe made us watch it, and it was two men, you know, it was a gay character trying to find love, and it was essentially the same rom-com you've seen a gazillion times, you know, kind of best friend is in love, but the main character doesn't know it yet and goes for someone else unsuitable, and the best friend's there the whole time, and yada yada yada. But there were so many stereotypes like this, like
there were so many stereotypes in that. But do you know, I mean, I haven't watched a lot of you know, non-heteronormative rom-coms. I haven't watched a lot of rom-coms, but I have the few that I have seen. There does seem to be a lot more equality between the two main characters. I've not seen one yet, and I'm not saying they're not there. I've just not watched them. Netflix is not showing me them in my algorithms, going back to algorithmic preferences. But I haven't seen any where they're in that real imbalance of power. The tropes that are being used are the ones where it is the kind of hidden friendship that you just haven't seen it yet or whatever. So it would be interesting, wouldn't it, to see, I don't know, somebody out there must have done this investigation already, but to see how those differences play out as more have created, I suppose.
I lost you because it all just went down. But
you were going to sleep. I thought you were like
no, it all just went.
But also something really interesting.
But also you've got to remember what makes it onto our screen is made there for a reason. You know, it's not done from, let's start from a position of we want to put out the most, you know, body positive, diverse story that we can. There's a dollar amount against it all.
And also we've got to remember, and I do think this is a really important point, not just what makes it onto, you know, what is made, but what makes it onto our screens in terms of what the algorithms show us. Because, you know, again, we are in a world that is run by algorithms, which are run by our past preferences. So if we only start to watch a certain type of something, the algorithms will only show us that certain type of something, be it social media, Netflix, whatever, and we keep watching the same things. And so we've got to remember that our worlds are not as diverse as we think they are they?
I think as well there's a stigma attached to romance and stuff, and you know, I always thought as a good feminist I can't be into all this shite, and you know, people call it, and I do like a good rom-com film, but I would have used to have referred to it as my guilty pleasure, and I just think like no pleasure. I know everyone, like, no pleasure should be guilty. Like if you like it, bloody watch it, and you know, if you spot something problematic, have that kind of in a discussion or talk about it with somebody and use it as a kind of conversation point. But you know, maybe like don't stay away from things just because you think that they're going to be problematic.
Make your own choices. Make your own decisions, having watched something, read something.
Absolutely. You know? And I think the point that we're coming back to, and I am going to wrap it up because we're running out of time. There's some really great points being made on the comments there. But essentially, it's not that romance is anti-feminist. It's all about context. You can have romance stories, be they TV, film, or books, that absolutely center women. You can even use all of those tropes that we mentioned. You know, the secret billionaire and the second chance round and all the rest of it. they can be feminist. It's just about the context that you put them in. And so I think what we've got to do as feminists is start demanding that we want romance, but we want our romance to be feminist. And we're not just going to fall for that old 90s thing of, we'll watch a rom-com as long as the woman changes every single thing about her and then goes out with a man who's been gaslighting her.
Yeah, exactly.
Marvellous. Well, there we go. We've solved the patriarchy. Another great episode. Thank you very much. Jo, do you have a final thought?
I don't think so. I've said probably quite a lot, but I'm just intrigued because I have jumped from romance as being my primary genre in my business area, in what I do, to I now work a lot on crime fiction, which is much more male dominated. It's very interesting. Wow. So yeah, I'm navigating a new world. So there's a new thought for maybe a future.
Well, yeah, we have an episode on women in publishing coming up. I think it's scheduled for later in the summer, so it'd be really interesting. Actually, then you'll have been in the job a few months, won't you? So it'd be really interesting to get some insights from you.
I'm really distracted because is that Rebecca telling me she's working on a Mills and Boon at the moment?
I think so. I think it's we can't see the name, but it was Rebecca further.
You need to join my community, and also I'm about to. Funny you should mention this, but I'm doing my weekly Monday motivation on avoiding writing stereotypes this week. So
amazing. Oh, Jo, put your link in the comments, please, and then people can join. Yeah. Hello, baby.
Hello,
Hannah. Final thought, Hannah.
Just that I think really romance is probably one of the least problematic genres. I'm a big horror fan, and if we think so I love anything that's to do with women being gruesomely murdered, but you never get men being gruesomely murdered. So I think romance is actually it is just kind of patriarchal discrimination against content that's created by women for women.
Absolutely. I agree completely. And my takeaway from this is that I should be more romantic.
Yeah, I'm going to go romance the shit out of that fat hairy bastard up there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for watching. If you've watched live, thank you so much for your comments. Especially thank you, Rebecca. And we will be back in 2 weeks' time. I can't remember what we're talking about, but it will be fascinating. Yeah, it will be fabulous. Thank you very much. Wave, guys. See you soon.